I am Dr. Philip Ovadia, and I have been a heart surgeon now for nearly 20 years. And during that time, I myself was progressively unhealthy. And I had reached a point about 7 or 8 years ago now where I was morbidly obese, I was pre-diabetic, and I realized that I was going to end up on my own operating table, so to speak. I was following the same path that, many of the patients that I operated on ended up taking. And, I was really at a loss to understand why, because I was following the advice that I had learned to give patients. And I was following, the advice that I was told was good for my health, and yet it wasn't. So I started asking some different questions, and I started coming across some different information. And ultimately, I was able to fix my own health. I lost over 100 pounds, and I reversed my prediabetes. And perhaps more importantly, I came to realize that this was the information that could help so many of my patients. And so, for the past few years now, I've really been on a mission to help people understand how to stay off of my operating table and how to not need me as a heart surgeon by focusing on their metabolic health. And we're certainly going to get into that as we go through this discussion. Was quite a challenge on a number of levels. The first challenge was really for me to be willing to sort of unlearn so much of what I had learned, to really start to question what is, taken as dogma, within the heart health world. And yet, we see that failing over and over again. And it really, was necessary to do so because, what I realized ultimately is that almost every patient who ends up on my operating table is a patient that has been failed by the healthcare system, by the medical system. Not that patient has failed, but the system has failed that patient, and the information that they have received, the guidance has failed them. And, really, it has been quite a shift in thinking for me, because what I've come to realize is that the healthcare system, and this is true, almost universally, is way too focused on taking care of sick people and not focused enough on how to keep people from getting sick in the first place. And, I think that our efforts would be much better spent trying to keep people from getting sick in the first place. And yet we don't put enough resources, we don't put our energy, as healthcare practitioners towards that. And so that has really been a major shift for me in the way that I think and in the way that I now interact with people. First and foremost, it really comes down to understanding what metabolic health is and how to improve, how to optimize your metabolic health. So, metabolic health, the way that I explain it to people is that when we are metabolically healthy, our bodies are able to properly utilize the inputs that we are giving it. And those inputs are largely in the food that we eat. When we eat, one of three things is supposed to happen. And all three of these things happen all the time, but they're supposed to be sort of in balance. So when we eat, some of that food gets turned into immediate energy to fuel all of our activities, and these are our cellular level activities, as well as, our big, the activities that we all do throughout the day. Some of the food is also used to, it's broken down and it's used to build and rebuild our tissues. That's a process, again, that's constantly going on within our bodies. And then some of the food gets turned into energy to get stored for times when there isn't food available, isn't energy available. And we have to realize that for the vast majority of our existence as human beings, food was a scarce resource, and it wasn't always around us like it is today. Now, our modern environment has largely eliminated that problem, but it has caused a whole new problem. And that is that we end up storing all this energy and we never get to use that stored energy. And that is what breaks our metabolic health. That is what ultimately leads to heart disease, which I deal with every day, but also many of the other chronic diseases that plague our society, things like diabetes, things like Alzheimer's disease, many forms of cancer, obesity. All of these things have been associated with metabolic health. And so the magic of metabolic health, the reason why I think it is so important for people to focus on is that it not only will help keep you off of my operating table, prevent heart disease, but it's also going to help minimize the impact or prevent so many of the other chronic diseases that are the biggest threats to men's health today and women's health as well. So, the first tip that I give people that I think is so important around health is that you need to think of your health as a system, not as a goal. And what I mean by that is all too often we are focused on, kind of short-term goals when we think about our health. We say to ourselves, I want to lose 20 pounds. And when you have a short-term goal like that, one of two things is going to happen. You might be able to accomplish your goal and you lose the 20 pounds. And then most people tend to say, great, I did what I needed to do. And they slide back to their old habits and they end up gaining back the weight and more. That's an experience that I certainly went through many, many times. The other possibility is that you don't lose the weight and you get discouraged and you kind of give up. And you say, well, I might as well just keep doing what I was doing. And again, you don't end up improving your health at all. So instead, what I try to get people to do, and I think the first tip, for successful improvement of your health is you have to think about the whole system. And you have to say to yourself, I want to be healthy. I want to be metabolically healthy. And I am going to find the habits that are going to support and improve my metabolic health. And I find that that's a much more sustainable way to think. It's a much more positive way to think. You're not, restricting, you're not taking things away in order to accomplish your goal. You are building good habits to support your metabolic health. So that's kind of the mindset piece of it. And that's tip number one. Now, tip number two for optimizing your health is, looking at the food that you eat. And the food that we eat is the primary determinant of our health. And the simple rule that I use, that I share with people who are trying to optimize their health, is to eat real food, eat whole, real food, eliminate the processed food. And that doesn't need to be all that complicated. I tell people to eat the things that grow in the ground and eat the things that grow in the ground. Eat animal products, eat plant products. And if you stick to those, you're going to end up being healthier. It is clear that processed food is the number one thing in our environment that is harming all of our health. And the more that you can eliminate processed food, and processed food is basically anything that isn't whole, real food, the more that you can eliminate that, the better your health is going to be. So tip number 2 is eat whole, real food. Tip number 3 that I give people is to move more. Now, you'll notice I didn't say exercise X number of hours a day. I didn't say go to the gym. I just said move more. And for most people, that is really all that they need. Just find ways to incorporate more movement into your day. This can be something as simple as, every hour you take a 10-minute break to walk around. After you eat, you go on a 10-minute walk. That you take the stairs instead of the elevator or the escalator. That you park further away from, the building at work, and you do that extra walking. Just finding these simple steps to add a little bit more activity throughout our day turns out to be more effective than going to the gym for an hour. If you're just sitting around the rest of the day, it turns out that hour in the gym isn't really going to have all that much of an effect. But unfortunately, we've been led to believe that that's the answer to our problems, that if we just spent more time in the gym, we would all be healthier. But over and over, we see that advice doesn't work. So just move more is tip number 3. Tip number 4 that I give people is to get adequate sleep. And again, I don't give a number. I don't say sleep 8 hours a day or X hours a day. What I say is get adequate sleep. And that has 2 components to it. It has the amount of time that you sleep, but it also takes into account the quality of your sleep. And, there are plenty of people who sleep many, many hours, but they don't get quality sleep for various reasons. And so it's ineffective. What I find, for healthy people is that oftentimes they actually need less sleep than, again, we've been told, the traditional 8 hours a day. Many people are able to get along just fine with 6 or 7 hours a day, as long as those 6 or 7 hours are quality sleep hours. So, get enough quality sleep is tip number 4. And, the way to know that you're getting enough quality sleep is that you're rested, you wake up rested, and you're able to make it through your day, with adequate energy. And then, tip number 5 that I would probably give people, and I will mention that in my book, there are actually 7 principles, but we're sticking to 5 for today's purpose. But probably the other, important tip that I would give people is to find a doctor or a healthcare practitioner or, a coach of some sort who understands metabolic health and can help you, help you to optimize your metabolic health. So in the book, I say, get a doctor who gets it. But, it doesn't necessarily need to be a doctor. It can be any, healthcare practitioner, any sort of coach who understands what metabolic health is, can help you examine, the habits that you have and help you figure out how to achieve optimal metabolic health. Because as I said, optimal metabolic health turns out to be the key to good health overall, to preventing the chronic medical problems that plague, us today, and to help you feel your best every day. It has been dramatic. And, what I came to realize, even though I didn't consider myself to be sick, even though I thought that I, felt good and was able to, kind of do everything I wanted to and needed to do in life, what you realize once you get truly healthy, once you optimize your metabolic health, you come to realize how good we as human beings are actually supposed to feel. One of the saddest things to me is that we have normalized being sick. It is, just accepted, for instance, that, you feel less well as you get older. And yet here I am, now, I am 48 years old, and I feel better. I function better. I would even say I look better than I did in high school, and certainly in my 20s and my 30s. And so there is no reason that we need to, start feeling unwell. We need to get tired. We need to have aches and pains as we get older. You really can remain healthy and vibrant. And the changes that come along with that are just so amazing. The energy that I have, the mental clarity that I have, the ability, to better focus on my work, on my family. All of these things are benefits that come from being metabolically healthy. And that's ultimately, what I hope to inspire in people. I hope people, take away from this talk and this summit overall is that you can be healthy, you should be healthy, and don't stop looking for answers until you get healthy. If your doctor tells you that, oh, you just have to deal with your illness, you just have to live like this, it's just a normal part of aging, don't accept that answer, because we can and we should expect to be healthy, as we go through life. And so I hope people, understand that and kind of are inspired by that to make sure that they optimize their health so that they can feel their best every day. Called Stay Off My Operating Table, and it is widely available internationally. It's a bestseller, and it's an award-winning book. I really wrote it to be, kind of simple and understandable. So it's, it's not real. It's not one of these real heavy, scientific things. I think it's very readable, and I hope people, I hope it resonates with people well.